guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is TheSketchMonkey here. I'm back here at McDonald Volvo in Denver to have a look at Volvo's current flagship in 2023. And this is the 2023 Volvo XC90 all-wheel drive Recharge Plus. So what we're gonna do in this video, talk about this beautiful design, because this is the stateliest of the stateliest Volvos. We're gonna have a look at the front end design, the side view, the rear, the interior, and then we're gonna take this for a drive. And the question is, would you buy this based on the design over the new EX90? Let's have a look at some of the basic spec and tech of the XC90 T8. You have a 2-liter inline-4 turbo hybrid, putting out 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque. It's all-wheel drive connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. The fuel economy sits at 20 city, 26 highway. 0 to 60 is done in 5 seconds, and this one is for sale for $79,000. Starting with the front-end design of the 2023 XC90. Now this, we don't have the R design anymore in 2023. What that would do is black out all these features that we have here in chrome, for example, the grille and this piece down here. But for 2023, and since this is the XC90, the big brother, I sort of think that this chrome exterior that we have here, these pieces, it almost suits this design. And what I like about the styling here compared to the XC40, the XC60, is that we have a lot more structure in this design. For example, a lot more horizontal and vertical lines and less styling in this front end, exactly like we want in the big brother XC90. Now, this being the top of the line XC90, the T8 Recharge all-wheel drive, 455 horsepower, we're gonna need some cooling in the front end. So you can see that the entire grille here is obviously open, this being the main grille. You have the chrome bezeled logo in the middle with the camera in this nice housing. I do like when they create a beautiful housing for the small little details such as the cameras, and we do have that here. This is also open, and on the side, on the passenger side in the corner, that air intake is also open. However, if you go into this place right here and have a look, we don't have a 100% symmetry in the front end because this is closed off. I do wish that they just open this up. It doesn't matter what's behind it, but just so we have that symmetry in the front end. But it's just a small detail. Overall, this front end is just a gorgeous design. It has this graceful presence to it. So the question is, would you who are watching this, would you buy this design over the new EX90? To me, the choice is pretty clear, if I'm honest. I would go for this design for a simple reason, because I think this design overall has more of this automotive feel to it, while the new EX90 feels more Polestar-like. And what Polestar does compared to Volvo is that they have more of this product design feel in their designs and less of this emotional lines that we have in, for example, the XC90, even though this is the big brother. So for that reason, I would still go with this design, even if this came out in 2016. One unique design feature that you find on pretty much every single Volvo is the hood design. I love what Volvo is doing with their hoods, having this line coming down from the A-pillar into the front end. I do wish that this line here had some connection to what's going on in the front end with the Thor's hammer, of course, that we have in the XC90 as well. And then you have this line being housed within this curvature. So we have another 2 lines going in the hood that fades right here and creating this chamfer on the top part of the headlight. Overall, very simplistic and minimal styling for Volvo, but they still managed to nail their design identity every single time, because when you look at this front end, there's no way you're gonna think that this is anything else but a Volvo. So coming around to the side view of the 2023 XC90, and I think it's pretty interesting to think about the design companies today and how it's like a global rule for all manufacturers to have the big brother be less stylized than the smaller siblings, in this case the XC40 and the XC60. You see though here, instead of having a broken shoulder line that goes here like we have on the XC60, right here we have one single sharp line that goes across the entire length of the car and into this very corner of the taillight. Beautifully done, and this is what you want on the larger vehicle in the lineup. You want to have less stylized, yes, maybe less fun for the designers, but it's also a challenge to make it look different from the smaller siblings, and you do that by having lines such as this gorgeous shoulder line going across the entire length of the car. So what do we get for wheel and tire setup? Standard, This comes with 20-inch wheels, but this is optioned with the beautiful have to get 21-inch wheels. I love the design of this thing because it's not a chrome, it's just silver and simple spokes with some styling within the spokes themselves, just looking classy and elegant, and it suits this ride so well to have these 21-inch, specifically with this design onto this package. The tire size, the width of the tires are 275s all around, so you have 275s in the front end as well, and since this is all-wheel drive, I do think that's a good idea. Overall, the package and the proportions of this thing, I said this in my XC60 review as well, I think Volvos today, even though they are almost 9 years old right now, and if you count from the very beginning, from the early sketches, they're probably over a decade old. But this is what I'm talking about when we mention timeless design. When you have clean lines like this, clean proportions, all you got to do is just update the graphics, the wheels, the LEDs in the front and back, and you still have a modern design. And I think that's what's going on here with the XC90, because I think this is still today a gorgeous looking SUV. Coming around to the rear and the 3/4 rear view of the Volvo XC90, and it's just as stunning back here as it is from pretty much any angle of Volvo. So I feel a little split if I like the new direction that Volvo is going, being more in line. It's almost morphing together with what Polestar is doing with this more product design feel. Here, look at these taillights, for example, how organic these are. Even though this is the XC90, the biggest SUV that Volvo makes, we still have some organic automotive design in the rear end here. One detail that I would definitely change on this, in this price, this is $80,000. This is a price range that I do definitely want to hide the wiper and extend the roof spoiler a little bit further out to be able to house this underneath the brake light that sits up here, and just clean that up, because the rest of the rear end of this car is just so simplistic and graceful that this just doesn't feel like it belongs in the middle of the rear window. Moving down to the lower section of the XC90, the bumper is not too big. It's actually smaller than what we have on the XC60, specifically this shelf that we have going here. And moving further down, you can see that we don't have any visible exhaust pipes. Not sure what you think about that. We have a powerful engine in the front, 455 horsepower. I'm not so sure if I want to have them visible because of the philosophy of what the Volvo brand is, angled more towards luxury than sport. So in one way, I think it looks elegant and classy without the tailpipes, but at the same time, this being the top trim of the XC90 with this powerful engine, I kind of also want to have some integration of the tailpipes in the rear. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Welcome to the beautiful interior of the 2023 Volvo XC90 T8 Recharge. And in here, what I like about Volvo, so let's just fire this up because it is insanely hot outside. It says on the gauge cluster it is 101 degrees. I don't think it's that hot, but it kind of feels like it. It's insane. I feel like I'm back in South Florida with this heat. But anyway, let's talk about this interior. What I like about Volvo is that they keep the interiors very, very similar across their entire lineup, whether it be sedans, whether it be SUVs, or whatever type of vehicle it is. They look very similar. So we do have the same 9-inch infotainment screen, even in the big XC90, the same 9-inch that you have in the XC60 and the S60 as well, and it functions exactly the same. So if you switch from one Volvo to the other, it's gonna be the exact same features that you get in the infotainment screen. What I do like here is that we don't have any climate control physical buttons or dials or anything like that sits underneath here. Would be nice to have, but that would also clutter up the interior. So what did Volvo do here to implement the interior as well as possible in the infotainment screen? They do have one bar at the very bottom that is fixed in place on this 9-inch screen. So you just have to tap it and boom, up comes all the functions for the climate control. Where you want the air to blow, you have a visual representation of that. Very easy. You just tap wherever you want the air to come out, from the top, middle, or down low, or all of them. And you have the fan speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or max. And you have, at the very bottom, you have the temperature controls, which I'm gonna have now at the lowest settings to try to cool me down right now, because as I said, it is very toasty in here. And you can also go back to all the settings. So click the settings, and here you have the drive modes. And in this case, we have 5 different drive modes. You have hybrid, you have Polestar, which is a sport, you have pure, more dialed down, off-road, and constant all-wheel drive. You also have the settings for the battery usage. You might want to keep that in, I guess, auto, to make the car figure out how much battery to use and so on. And you have some safety features here as well. Lane keep assist, road sign information, ready to drive notifications, which I think is one of the best invention the last 5 years. When you're sitting at a red light and you may be doing something on the infotainment screen and it turns green, instead of having some angry person behind you just jumping on the horn, instead you have a chime in the interior that tells you that it's a green light, you're ready to go. And you have the same camera settings here that we have in a lot of other Volvo models. You have the rear view camera, and it looks like it's the exact same cameras that are used here that they use in lower spec and cheaper models as well. The 360 is still not the best resolution, but it is going to show you all the major obstacles that you have. And if you want to go back into a camera view, you have the cameras all around, to the right and to the left and to the front and to the rear. You just have to tap on the specific camera that you want to see. Very simple, again, simple integrations of these systems here, which I love with Volvo's infotainment screen. These vents, they don't look as classy as they do in the XC60. They look a lot more traditional, and we do have this housing for everything. Almost like it's sitting like a sticker on top of the dash, which is otherwise very smooth. And then you have the vents being outlined by this silver trim piece right here, with the vents being easily adjustable. You can definitely see the fins behind it, so you know exactly where the air is going to flow out from. Further down on the side on the dash here, you do have this nice, beautiful wooden trim. Also, another detail that I love about Volvos and their interiors is their inspiration from nature, and having those type of materials coming into the interior. We also have that on the door, which we're going to talk about in just a second. You also have the same trim going around these buttons here for the hazard and the radio controls. Further down, you have the exact same integration of this little storage spot here for your markers and your big pens that you can store right here, that we have in the S60 and the XC60 as well. And unfortunately, in this XC90, we don't have the beautiful Orrefors crystal gear selector. Instead, we do have a leather-wrapped, more standardized selector right here, which still looks good, but I would definitely go with the crystal Orrefors selector, because it's just a special thing that Volvo is doing, and something that's unique to them that I would like to have in my Volvo. Further back, you have the same, again, start and engine stop turn button. You just turn it once to the right to turn it on, and once again to the right to turn it off. Pretty simple. Parking brake. Then you have a 12 volt right here, and some compartments with 2 cup holders. This section feels like it's generic to Volvo. They just take the same section off this center console and just add it into whatever car they're building, and I don't think that's anything wrong with that. You also have a leather wrapped armrest here, and once you open this up, it's pretty shallow in here, but you do have 2 charging ports in here, so it's all very well. And this is pretty hard, this material that you're gonna have your arm on. It's still leather, but it feels pretty solid to me. Moving on to the seats here. This looks like the standardized seats that we have in the XC90, not the optional, more sporty ones that you get, for example, in the XC60. I still like these seats because if you think back to the 2000s, the V70, the first generation XC70, and the S60 as well, the first generation, had by far, still today, some of the most comfortable seats you're ever gonna sit in, and these look like just a replica of those seats, because why would you fix something that's working so well? So these are fantastic seats, very comfortable, not too sporty, but that's okay. Moving on to the steering wheel and the gauge cluster. This steering wheel feels pretty simplistic for what this is, an $80,000 SUV. I would like to have a bit more of finesse to the steering wheel. We still have the same, basically the exact same steering wheel that you have in a $40,000 S60. It works fine, but when you step it up to double that price, you want to have something more unique than that, in my opinion. You do have the buttons here for the voice control, and you can have the calm mode for the 12.3-inch gauge cluster, meaning that you hide the map if you want to take it for a nice cruise and don't want to think about where you're going. Just go wherever the car takes you, put it in calm. It's gonna hide everything except for the tachometer and the speedometer. But if you need to go someplace, just press this button and the map is gonna pop up in the gauge cluster. And I love how it's fading from the sides into the center of the gauge cluster, looking very nice and integrated. It has a nice flow to it, this gauge cluster. To the left side of the steering wheel, you do have the same vent that we have over there, and you also have the button for the fuel cap, and you can open the trunk from in here as well. Moving on to the doors, as I said about this wood trim, the biggest piece of this wood trim comes back in the doors. On the top part, we also have more of this chrome trim at the very bottom, going like a baseline for the wood trim that we have in the door. Otherwise, a very simplistically designed door that has all the functions that you need in a car door. Looking up top, the traditional slider sunroof that we get from Volvo. Slide your finger back or forth to either open or close it, and that's how you deal with this sunroof. Very intuitive, and I kind of do like that we don't have any buttons for it, because this works just as well, and it's very easy to figure out how to open and close the sunroof. Now you might wonder, how do you open this glove box, because there's no buttons, but I can see that there's a cut line here, and I can see just how big the glove box is in the XC90. So moving on to this, there is a button here with looks like an arrow and something folding down. So let's press that, and you can see just it opens very gracefully as well. It's just a slam down like you have in other cars. A very calm Scandinavian way of opening a pretty large glove box. With that said, we talked about the front end of the exterior. Let's jump back, and this is a pretty comfortable driving position for me, so let's see if I can fit behind myself back there. Okay, jumping into the back seat of the XC90, and just like I expected, I fit perfectly in the XC60. There is no way I'm not gonna fit in the bigger XC90, and that is the case. You do have the netting in the seats in front of you to store whatever you want, a couple of markers, maybe even a sketchbook for this size. The good thing about this back seat, or this XC90, is that you get 4-zone climate control. So you have the lock, just press the lock on this display right here, and you can see that we can adjust the fan speed or the temperature in 2 different zones in the back and 2 different zones in the front end as well. Very nice. And you also have 2 USB-C ports at the very bottom. Fold the center down here, and you're gonna get a pretty small armrest, but you do also have 2 cup holders. If you press this button in the middle, they're gonna pop up. However, they do look very small, so you might wanna bring some extra water with you when you go on a longer road trip. It is, in fact, that time. It is time to take the 2023 XC90 T8 Recharge all-wheel drive plus for a drive. So what do we have under the hood? The funny thing about Volvo is that they use the same 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged, but they play around a little bit with the hybrid integration of it to play with the power range. So this has 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque, which is not bad at all. It's really a lot for a Volvo that's supposed to be this subtle, chilled out brand, but this is properly quick. 0 to 60 in 5 seconds in this thing. And let's see if we have it in driving. Let's go into driving. And yeah, we do have it in Polestar mode right now, which is the most sporty variant that you can have when you're driving this car. But I do need some more fan speed, because it is getting really hot in here. I know I keep saying that all the time. I honestly was not expecting this type of heat in Colorado. It feels like I'm back in South Florida, to be honest. So let's turn into this side road here, and let's see what this power is all about. 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Let's step on it. Oh yeah. Wow, this thing goes a lot faster than I was expecting it to. Even though it has such big volumes and such a big package overall, it still feels pretty nimble, this thing. I think that has to do with us having it in Polestar mode right now, but I'm surprised by how quick this is. With all Volvos, I do wish we had some pedals behind the steering wheel, because we do have an 8-speed automatic, and it would be nice to have the option to, if we wanted to, just use the pedals back here to have some fun while we're driving this thing. For a 4-cylinder, it sounds pretty good too. It's not a bad combination to have a 4-cylinder like this, and then you have a mild hybrid setup. In this case, it's a pretty strong electric motor. I think it has around 130 horsepower or something like that. So it's not, you know, the weakest, or I don't know if I would call it a mild hybrid, but it is very powerful. And when you have this hybrid setup, you also have a lot of torque from the get-go. So let's forward here again. And that was uphill. That was uphill up to 60. Just a fantastic motor and setup, drivetrain this thing with the hybrid setup that we have in combination with the 2-liter inline 4, and that's what you get. This is what I want to see in more cars as well. Maybe not the AMGs. Yes, I know the new C-Class only has a 4-cylinder and is also the same type of idea that we have here. The AMGs is the only exception that I still want to have V8s in, because a big part of the AMG feel and vibe is the brutal rumble from the V8s. But anyway, let's go back to this Volvo and let's talk more about the drive settings here. So let's go into, see what we have. Let's go into Pure, and I think we can use only electric for a few miles. I'm not sure how many miles, but right now we are in 100% EV mode. I can't hear any engine. The tachometer is changed. You can see how much power you're using and how much charge you're getting when you're stepping off the gas. Very cool. So if you just want to go around town for a quick trip, you can still use this as just a normal EV. But since we have the internal combustion engine, let's just put it back into Polestar, fire up that engine again, and back is the tachometer. Oh, this is such a nice torque curve to it. You can feel it like pulling you from very low RPMs. I absolutely love how this thing drives. And it feels pretty sporty as well. The suspension feels firm, which it should feel in Polestar mode. Oh yeah, this thing goes. What a fun SUV to drive. And it's only a bonus that it looks as good as it does, because this looks still, what is it, 8 years since it was introduced? It still looks just so good, Volvo's designs. As I said, I hope they don't go too far into this product design Polestar feel. Polestar looks nice too, don't get me wrong, but I want to have a separation between Polestar and Volvo when it comes to the design and their philosophy. And it feels like they're starting to merge with the new EX90, for example. It might have well just been a Polestar, the design of that thing. And that's why I prefer this older design, because we have more emotion in the designs, and that's what you want in automotive designs. Huge thanks to McDonald Volvo right here in Denver for providing this vehicle for me to review for you guys today. If you're interested in this one or their entire inventory, I'm gonna link it all down in the description, so go and check that out. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.